Hello, you're listening to a We Will Fix It podcast short with Colin Thomas and myself, James Pikeaway.
The basic skills, and I just put randomly the number 3.
Yes.
And my students think I'm infatuated with the number 3, and I say, what do you mean? He says, well, everything you do that you teach us, so whether it's public speaking or it's intercultural communication or it's conflict resolution, which is really a 7, but you always work it into 3 steps.
I think that's because for most people, and especially myself, anything beyond 3 and I'm lost.
Well, I always frame it with them is that 3 is the classic linear development of a story. So
Agreed.
if you're beginning, middle, and an end. And so beginning, we introduce something, the middle, we have a problem, at the end, we've solved it, and we move on to the next thing. So it could be 5, but it's, Tataroff has built the 3 into a 5. There's a couple extra steps. But really, any movie you watch, if it's linear flow and up doing, time warping, everything follows that 3 steps. So I thought, the top 3, 3 skills as a homeowner or a renter that you should have entering into that world of living in a place as a DIYer. 3 things you need to have.
So as a basic DIYer, as in I'm not going to really do anything too involved, but I'm just going to do the basics myself. All you need really is drilling,
okay,
screwing, and leveling. Those 3.
Okay, the drilling I get.
Yes. So with a drill, we've talked about it many times before, but it's all about make sure you get a hammer action, keep it steady on the wall, and make sure that you use plenty of speed.
There you go. The speed is the important one. I think a lot of people go way too slow.
Yes.
They start off slow because, I got to get this pilot going.
Yeah.
And then they keep going slow, whereas you need to be good, especially here because you got concrete walls and you're dealing in concrete.
Yep. And also there's a sweet spot normally. If you've got a variable, so I've got a variable speed, it's constantly variable. And you can feel that point at which the hammer is working best. So I'm kind of playing with the speed a little bit just to work out where's my hammer best for this particular density of wall. But it's normally pretty fast. And my drill is so noisy. I mean, it's awesome. But it's so noisy that literally I do warn the neighbourhood before I'm going to let rip.
We're doing some work here.
Yes. So that's
do you wear earplugs when you use your drill?
No, I should, but I don't. Valid point. PPE.
I've really gotten into the earplug thing. I'm kind of obsessed with earplugs these days.
No, rightly so, and even more shockingly, I am fully qualified in health and safety. Gee whiz.
I know your boys wear earplugs, so.
Yes, they do. Yeah. So the second one's screwing. Now, this is not as simple as it sounds. Because
it sounded really simple.
Yeah, because most people think, I'll drill the hole, I'll put a screw in it, and away we go.
Done.
Yeah. Doesn't work like that. You need plugs as well. And the plugs that go into
there's a lot of variety of plugs.
Yeah, there are. There really are. But when it all boils down to it, it kind of boils down to the cheapest ones, which are just really soft plastic. Normally come with the screws as well. Normally don't hold in a concrete wall. That's the problem.
They're usually made for wood, those things.
Or
something, because wood, you use wood screws, but.
Yeah, but you don't normally need to use plugs with them. So I think they've just cost reduced them so much that the material is just too pliable to actually grip on.
I was thinking maybe gypsum walls or something. Maybe
no, but again with gypsum you should be using butterfly clips, which is something totally different.
So they're just cheaped out.
They're just cheaped out. Yeah. So instead, torque. So my boys will all use individual torques that come in red, green, or yellow. Green ones are the normal ones that you would use with I think they're designed for 6 millimeter drills, and they work great though. They grip on really, really well, and away you go. I buy them by the kilo, because we get
Dragon Mart, or are you buying them at a Satwa?
Yeah, I do actually still. I still buy them from there, but I actually use those personally. My boys buy their own, and we're good with that. Because don't worry, we pay for them.
Yeah. But they source them themselves.
Yeah, because if you imagine, if you are a professional technician, you need total trust in what you're doing. And these are critical to what they do. So I want each of them to be fully responsible for what they are using on a job.
Nice.
So I've agreed that for those alone, they can source themselves.
Nice.
Yeah, and it works really well. So there's actually a variety of brands that each of them uses, and away they go. But if anything falls down, I know who to shout at.
What do you think of metal ones for outdoor use?
Well, yes, on the whole. But again, if you're
These are the plugs we're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, on the if you're outdoor, then on the whole you'd be using some sort of M fixing anyway. So you have the type that are kind of designed for the DIYer that actually deform. So you stick them into a hole, screw in whatever you're going to screw, and it'll deform. The idea is that it kind of basically just creates a bung in the hole of where you are. The ones that I prefer are kind of more industrial than that, and at that point, generally speaking, you are never getting them out. Even if you take the screw out of it, it's going nowhere. And those are the ones that I love, because if you can't hang off it, what's the point?
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, over-engineering is always the way.
So basically, you got your drill. You've got some plugs.
Yeah,
you got
leveling.
Leveling.
Okay.
I never think of the leveling
now,
side.
The reason why I brought up leveling, and I thought about this quite a lot on Hesse Street today, is if you imagine the two jobs that your average, very basic DIY will do.
Pictures and shelves.
Well, I was going to go pictures. Yeah, you could do shelves as well, and which fits in beautifully. But I was actually thinking more curtains. That if you're trying to save a bit of money and you've moved in somewhere, you might try curtains
as
well.
You get the IKEA things, get the rod, boom, it's done. Yep.
Yeah.
Curtains, pictures.
Yeah. So therefore, level on all three of those elements is absolutely critical. There is nothing worse than walking in somewhere and seeing a picture that is not straight. But then you then have the issue of what actually is straight, which is the battle that we have on a regular basis. So when our guys traditionally put up a picture, they will use a spirit level, which is what we recommend people to do. Now, a spirit level will tell you absolutely accurately whether or not that is level. Yeah. The problem is, if
that's the one with the the rod with the little ball, and then it's got the line, and you got to get that little air. In
absolutely. And the longer the better for that, by the way, because the more accurate it would be.
So that little tiny one that they sell for,
they're all right if you've got a little picture, but the longer you get, the more accurate it will be. Nice. But then the problem is, if either the floor or the roof are not in true, which is very often, then it looks like it's been put up wrong.
Yeah.
So then in that situation, our technicians need to talk to the customer and go, okay, that is correct. Look at the bubble. It's absolutely right. But it doesn't look right because your floor or your ceiling or both are out. So let's do an eyeball where it doesn't offend you anymore. And we're going to knock it off the actual level so that it looks like it's level, which is nuts.
Yeah.
But that happens frequently. Yeah. So that's something that needs to be done.
Even in the prefab places, that we got a lot of prefab stuff.
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, because the false ceilings are still in there.
Because I would think that because it's prefab, even with the false ceiling, that they would get spot on with everything.
No, because it's still jointed. If you imagine it comes in sections and it's still jointed, and that joint can put it out by quite a margin.
Huh.
So that's that. Now, curtains. Obvious one that when you're putting up a curtain, it's actually probably the most difficult one to level. So using, again, a longer spirit level is critical in that situation. I would normally measure it. So I would start off with a measurement first from a datum point. So it's normally like the corner of the frame, and I will go a certain distance out from the frame and a certain distance up.
And away you go.
Okay. Well, then it'll still need a little bit of tweaking. So then look at your fixture, the fitting, and normally they're pretty savvy, these people who make curtain rods, and they will give you like an oval shape to give you that ability to balance it out. So normally I'm confident enough in my measurement that with the simplicity of being able to move one of the brackets up and down, I'll be able to true it later. So I'll do that later in the process as a whole.
Nice.
Shelves, more difficult. Again, sometimes they give you that, and it is kind of key, especially depending on what you're putting on it, to make sure that it's absolutely level. But again, you've got the same issue as you've got with pictures, which is if the roof isn't level, even though your shelf is, it can look awful. So there's a little bit of messing about that's required to get those absolutely right.
Man, see, there we go. 3 basic skills. We need to have a little bit of a skill school for people to get back into those.
Yeah,
and
good idea.
Understand what's going. That's maybe something we should do.